Since we're talking about hearings, this was pretty impressive from yesterday. Katie Porter, I think this was yesterday. Katie Porter at the on the House Financial Services Committee. You'll recall Katie Porter from California. She was, I think, the first Democrat to represent this this district in ages in California. A disciple, I guess, if I think you could say, of Elizabeth Warren's. She was one of the bright stars in dealing with mortgage fraud in California. She studied under Elizabeth Warren at Harvard in law school. I think she was a law professor herself. She was at the House Financial Services Committee yesterday, and the CEO of Equifax. You'll recall that Equifax had a major data breach, I guess about a year and a half ago. I've been through this because I try and rent, and I froze my credit, and you have to unfreeze it. You thought, blah, blah. But here she is in basically, she's not just basically holding the CEO to account. I think she has had a material impact on an ongoing court case, it seems to me. But here is that exchange.
My question for you is whether you would be willing to share today your Social Security, your birth date, and your address at this public hearing.
I would be a bit uncomfortable doing that, Congresswoman. If you'd so oblige me, I'd prefer not to.
Okay. Could I ask you why you're unwilling?
Well, that's sensitive information. I think it's sensitive information that I like to protect, and I think consumers should protect theirs.
If we gave that sensitive, if that sensitive information were provided at this public hearing, what are you concerned about could happen?
I think, like every American Congresswoman, my apologies, Congresswoman, I'd be concerned about identity theft. I'm actually a victim of identity theft. It happened 3 times in the last 10 years to me, twice with my tax returns, and once, as a consumer of someone opening up fraudulent credit accounts in my name. Somehow they got my Social Security number, my date of birth, and my address, and then changed the address and opened up the account. So I think, like all Americans, we're concerned about that. Okay, so my question then is, if you agree that exposing this kind of information like that you have in your credit reports, creates harm, therefore you're unwilling to share it, why are your lawyers arguing in federal court that there was no injury and no harm created by your data breach? Congresswoman, it's really hard for me to comment on what our lawyers are doing. Respectfully, excuse me, but you do employ those lawyers. And they do operate at your direction. They're your counsel, and they are making these arguments in court, arguing on the record. I have the pleadings here from the court case. They are arguing on the record that that this case should be dismissed because there is no injury and no harm created by the disclosure of people's personal credit information. Yet I understand you, as I would, to believe that the exposure of that information, I asked you if you would give it to the committee, and you understandably said no, would in fact create a harm. So I guess I would ask you to please look carefully at what your lawyers are doing.
Yeah, there you go. So this is an ongoing court case where you basically have some tort lawyers who are taking Equifax to court and suing them because of this data breach. And one of the things the lawyers are arguing is there's no harm. And they just got not backed up by...
Not help them very
I would
much.
Imagine that's going to be submitted as
I would think so.
I would imagine that's very tough to maintain if your own CEO disagrees.